Was living in an apartment at the time and he shows up. I open the door and there's this bad zero muscle comb over. I could win the Nobel Prize and it would say Meathead wins Nobel. But of the relationship between father and daughter, and just we chose you because just like Carol Ochenor, you have blue eyes and a fat face. I said, okay, thanks. It wasn't the statement anyone expected at all. When news first started circulating about serious concerns surrounding Rob Reiner, the entire industry braced for the usual clean, polished press response. You know the routine. Carefully chosen words, safe phrasing, and that distant tone about privacy and respect. That's what everyone thought was coming. But what actually happened next caught people completely off guard. Because what Sally Struthers shared wasn't rehearsed. It wasn't filtered. And it definitely wasn't public relations. It was raw emotions spilling out in real time. The kind that makes you pause the video because it feels way too personal to even witness. This wasn't a former coworker talking for attention. This was someone who spent formative years alongside Rob, growing up together on the set of All in the Family. That bond didn't disappear when the camera shut off, and it clearly never faded. Sally wasn't just reminiscing. She was exposing emotional weight that had been building for months. And what she hinted at quietly flipped the narrative people thought they understood. Her words lined up with whispers that had already been circulating privately among insiders, including concerns that had reportedly reached people close to Tom Cruise within the last couple of days. This wasn't framed as proof or accusation. It came across as deep worry about something unhealthy that may have been happening behind closed doors. And here's the part that shook people the most. Sally admitted she stayed silent for a long time, not because she didn't care, but because she was trying to protect Rob's dignity. She made it clear that silence wasn't easy. According to her, the decision to finally speak came from fear that keeping quiet would do more harm than good. When All in the Family went on the air after we had 8 in the can and it started in the next few weeks to climb to number 1, we were all feeling our oats and I went on a coffee break on the set on a camera-blocking day to Norman Lair, who was standing over on the side, and I said, Norman, remember when I auditioned for this? And it was down to the last 4 and in one of them was Penny Marshall and we had to go in and do improvisations with Rob. And he says, yeah, what are you getting at? I said, well, I really thought that Penny would get it cause Rob was part of each audition and he was living with her and soon to marry her and he would obviously do better with her wanting her to get the job. I mean, was I really the funniest one in the room when we were doing the improvs for all the suits? He says, well, no. She specifically mentioned worries involving Rob's son, Nick Reiner, and made it clear these were concerns, not legal claims. When she spoke, her voice wasn't just sad. It was tight with frustration and emotion. This wasn't grief for a public image. It was anger at a situation that felt out of control. Then she dropped the line that made the room go silent. And yes, this is her exact quote. We all saw the bruises on his soul, but we were too afraid to ask about the bruises on his arms. That sentence hit hard because it wasn't literal. It was emotional. She was describing visible distress, not physical proof. Sally then talked about a lunch they shared just weeks earlier. She emphasized this moment because it was the last time she saw Rob in person, and what she described didn't sound like the outspoken, fiery director people recognize. She said he seemed smaller, withdrawn, and constantly on edge. According to her, he kept checking his phone over and over, reacting every time it buzzed, like he was bracing for bad news. When she asked him if something was wrong, she said his response haunted her. He looked exhausted, drained and completely overwhelmed. And this is another direct quote that stayed unchanged. I don't know how to stop him. I love him, but I'm terrified of him. At the time, Sally thought he was talking about industry pressure, politics, or someone powerful pulling strings. She didn't assume anything darker. Not until later, conversations started connecting dots she couldn't ignore. She made it clear she wasn't accusing anyone of crimes. What she described was fear, emotional fear, the kind that eats at someone slowly. With direct knowledge, tell us a month before the murders, doctors changed the meds Nick was taking for schizoaffective disorder. We're told Rob and Michelle Reiner were well aware that they had changed Nick's meds. They were alarmed at what they were seeing. There were changes in his behavior. They just didn't know what to do. We've been trying for a week to find out why doctors changed Nick's meds a month before the murders. No one would tell us. All they would say is, "You're going to be shocked when you find out." She said hindsight changed how she understood that lunch, especially after hearing similar concerns echoed by other people who cared about Rob's well-being. And that's where Tom Cruise's name entered the conversation. Not as an accuser, not as a whistleblower, but as someone who knew Rob closely for decades. Their bond from A Few Good Men wasn't just professional. It was personal. Cruise has a reputation for noticing shifts in people, and insiders say he had quietly expressed concern long before anything became public. Nothing here has been confirmed, and no official accusations have been filed. But the emotional puzzle pieces Sally shared painted a picture of a man under intense stress struggling with fear inside his own family dynamics. And that's what's making people uncomfortable. Not scandal for clicks, but the possibility that warning signs were missed. This isn't a headline-ready story with clean answers. It's messy, emotional, and unsettling. And that's exactly why it's making people stop and actually listen. According to multiple sources who say they were extremely close to what was unfolding behind the scenes and who only spoke on the condition of anonymity, Tom Cruise didn't just hear rumors from a distance. He allegedly saw something firsthand that shook him enough to act immediately. These sources claimed that back in November, Tom staged what could only be described as a quiet intervention, one that was never meant to go public. The story goes that Tom visited the Reiner home under the normal excuse of discussing a possible future project. Nothing unusual on the surface, but what he reportedly walked into was anything but normal. According to those accounts, the meeting quickly spiraled into a tense confrontation, and not with Rob. Sources alleged the tension centered on Nick. The situation described was heated, chaotic, and emotionally charged. Nick was reportedly yelling at Michelle, demanding access to a trust fund that had been restricted because of ongoing struggles tied to substance recovery. There's no claim of physical violence here, but the emotional intensity alone was enough to rattle everyone present. What's being alleged next is what stunned people the most. Tom Cruise, a man known for calm control and discipline, allegedly stepped between Nick and Michelle to de-escalate the situation, not as a hero moment, but as someone instinctively trying to lower the temperature. That alone says how serious the moment felt to those in the room. Later, according to leaked conversations shared privately, Tom allegedly told a close associate that Nick's demeanor scared him. He described a stare that felt empty, unpredictable, and deeply unsettling. Again, these are second-hand accounts, not diagnosis or accusations, but emotional reactions to what he believed he witnessed. What followed, if true, might be the most chilling part of this entire story. Sources say Tom pulled Rob aside that same day and spoke to him directly without softening the message. He allegedly told him, "You are not safe in this house. You need to get him out or you need to get out." And I was a real nutcase. I was crazy. And it was more than drugs. It's really always about more than that. And I needed a lot of that sort of discipline. It's life. Life goes on. Life happens. Things I don't know. That sentence alone reportedly haunted Rob long after Tom left. Think about that for a second. One of the most powerful, experienced figures in Hollywood, someone who's seen every kind of chaos imaginable, felt disturbed enough to warn a longtime friend to leave his own home. Not because of gossip, not because of image, but because of fear. And this is where the heartbreak deepens. According to multiple people close to Rob, his response was painfully familiar to anyone who's watched a parent struggle with boundaries. Rob didn't lash out. He didn't deny the tension. He defended his child. Sources say Rob told Tom something along the lines of, "He's sick. We can't abandon him. He just needs one more chance." That wasn't weakness. It was love. But love mixed with denial can be dangerous. Sally Struthers unknowingly confirmed this exact dynamic when she spoke publicly. She became emotional, admitting that Rob's endless forgiveness may have worked against him. She didn't blame anyone. She blamed herself. She said she wished she had pushed harder, spoken louder, and refused to accept the excuses. She shared that Rob had slowly started pulling away from everyone who knew him best. Plans were cancelled. Calls went unanswered. Even longtime friends from all in the family noticed the distance growing. It wasn't dramatic. It was quiet isolation. Please welcome R.A. Reiner and Seuss. You know, Sally and I were part of a unique television family. Yes. Yeah. A small group of remaining cast members reportedly tried to organize a reunion dinner recently. Something light, something familiar. Rob declined without explanation. Sally said that hurt more than she expected. Then she shared a moment that stuck with people. She said she drove by the house about a week ago, not to intrude, just to check. It was the middle of the day, yet every blind was closed. The house didn't feel lived in. It felt sealed off. She said it looked less like a home and more like a fortress. Heavy, silent, and closed to the outside world. She texted Rob telling him she was nearby. Hours passed before he replied. His message was short and heavy. Not a good time. He's home. That was it. No explanation, no follow-up. Those words now echo differently for everyone who heard them. Not as drama, but as a warning that something inside that house felt wrong for a long time. He's home. Just 2 words, but they carry a crushing amount of weight. After everything Sally Struthers shared, those words now sound less like a casual update and more like a warning. And what truly stunned people wasn't just the fear. It was the financial desperation underneath it all. We always assume families at that level never run out of money. That wealth makes problems disappear. But Sally shattered that illusion. She revealed that Rob's finances were quietly unraveling. Not because of failed projects or bad investments, but because he was trying to keep a situation from exploding. According to Sally, Rob had been selling off assets behind the scenes. Not to fund passion projects, not to enjoy retirement, but to cover debts connected to Nick's spiraling issues. She didn't present documents or numbers.